What's going on, people? Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. There's a war going on in the King Pilled Discord right now. Everyone's arguing about racism and Christianity. It's a good place to be. You guys are missing out if you're not there. We had a great schizo stream on Friday night that followed what was basically a schizo stream for the main ASTROLABE. Now, as some of you have already discovered, on YouTube, Friday's show has been taken down, and it is gone. It will not be coming back up on YouTube. I got the notification early this morning from YouTube that they took it down for something like glorifying violence or something to that effect. And I was talking about the Cybertruck situation in Las Vegas, and I guess I can't talk about that on the show. Maybe I inadvertently said something I shouldn't have. I don't know. I didn't really look to see if it gave me an exact timestamp or something. I appealed it, and I said it was an incredibly newsworthy event, and this is a news show, effectively, and that's why I talked about it. And it got, I got the appeal was rejected. It said give it 72 hours. It was rejected within like an hour. So, oh well, nothing I can do about it. If you want to see the episode, then the best place to go is Twitter. It is on X. After I finish the show today, let me see if I can just do it right now. If I can kind of vamp, because I gotta keep the show a little shorter today, because we are going to church tonight for Christmas Eve. It's our Christmas Eve in the old calendar. Christmas Eve tonight, Christmas in the morning. So I've got to get this wrapped up before too long. Oh, here it is. It wasn't too far down. Let me pin this for the time being. All right, so that will be pinned on my profile on Twitter. So if you just go to @RealKingPilled, then it's pinned up there. You can see it. You can go watch it there. It was a very good one. I got a lot of good feedback from it before it got taken down. But yeah. I told you there are feds in the chat. If you wanna join in on the Christianity and racism debate happening in the King Pill Discord, then the place to go for that is kingpill.com. All right, so let's see here. I've been scrambling today to get this show off the ground here. That's why we're a little early, because we got to leave for church here in a couple hours, and wasn't able to do all of the show prep and everything that I wanted. But there's enough stuff going on today that it was fairly low hanging. I didn't have to dig too far for some stories, and I do a good job of keeping the bookmarks tab populated with stuff. So. So I wasn't able. I was going to try to come up with another super chat goal, and I haven't come up with one yet. So there is not one. But if you'd like to send a super chat to support the show, that's very much appreciated. There's also some links in the description if you don't want to give 30% of your money to Google. Then you can also go to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled, or there's a Cash App link there as well if you want to send over a little dough. Very much appreciated. Helps me keep doing this, keep the show going, and it's another way for you guys to participate. All right, let's get going with the slop here. This one here, this is pretty rude. I apologize. Sorry, not sorry. I apologize for what I'm about to do to you, but yeah, this one, Bill S. Esquire posted this. This one cut deep. This is just downright rude. Someone I think posted this one in the Discord yesterday, and I was just straight up offended. I was so offended I had to include it on the show today. A $5 super chat from Wolfgang Graves. He says, for the best morning in the afternoon show on the internet. That's right. This is an actual, it's been a best afternoon morning show airing in the evening. And now it's just an afternoon morning show. My wife has a suggestion for a super chat goal here. Tank of gas to get to church twice in 14 hours. Yeah, right. That would be a pretty good super chat day to get an entire tank of gas in the truck. Yeah, personal attacks right off the rip. All right, there's another couple here, and then actually I got another handful in the slop category. Then we're going to do a thread on schizo edits from Epic Poster, Vagrant of Rhodes. Before that, though, we got to celebrate our young white men. Lomez posted this. He says, you have to watch the interview at the end of this. This guy is in high school. Zoomers could never. High school kids simply are not built like this anymore. Watch this magnificent man.
You're going to see something off the field that's a classic here. Follow the ball as it goes up the tunnel from the right side of your screen. Watch this fella jump out of the stands into the tunnel. He appears to be at least 10 feet off the ground, if not more. This is a don't try this. No, don't try this. Watch this. There he goes off into space. He catches the ball. Goes all the way down the tunnel.
Now check out this dude's haircut.
I thought he would have broken both his ankles. There he is. Is he stoked? This guy.
Now we got the guy. What's your name?
Michael Bantazis. I'm from the north side of Chicago. I played football at Sullivan High School.
Well, Mike, you could have gotten yourself hurt jumping down like that.
I played defense, offense. I got great hands. I played football my whole life. I love it, baby.
You got a little Monday Night Football history.
Whoops.
Something off the field that's a classic.
I played defense, offense. I got great hands. I played football my whole life. I love it, baby.
You got a little Monday Night Football history, too.
Oh, yes.
Let's go back to the game.
You're going to see.
What an absolute unit. Look at that hair. This is a time capsule, man. And this dude's in high school. Yeah, he looks 30. The most 17-year-old sounding 35-year-old ever. Oh, man. We can go back. Can you imagine, though, like showing this to... I mean, I'm a millennial. I can't even imagine Zoomers out there. We got Zoomer dudes reacting to this. Can you wrap your mind around this being a high schooler? And that one, I think those two videos were two. I was doing the doom scroll on the video feature on X, and I think those two were back. These two here were back to back. This is today we learned that fuck on two has been a thing in the Notre Dame offensive line room since at least Coogan's freshman year in 2021. Take notes, every other offensive line room.
Hey, it's really fucking simple tonight. It's really fucking simple. It's a battle of fucking cultures. It's a battle of fucking cultures. All culture versus fucking nerds. Our brotherhood versus fucking nerds. Our willingness to go to that fucking dark place versus fucking nerds. Our willingness to strain our fucking ass off versus fucking nerds. I'm taking us every fucking time. Every fucking time. Our willingness is versus fucking nerds. I'm taking us every fucking time. Freeman said it best. Let this fuel your fucking minds and hearts. It's God, it's country, and it's motherfucking Notre Dame. Fuck on 2, 1, 2, fuck! It's really fucking simple tonight.
One more time.
It's country, and it's... Let this fuel your fucking minds and hearts. It's God, it's country, and it's motherfucking Notre Dame. Fuck on 2, 1, 2, fuck!
It's God, it's country, and it's motherfucking Notre Dame. So I don't know how you can't appreciate, how you can't at least be a sports ball appreciator. You don't have to be a sports ball enjoyer, but you got to at least be a sports ball appreciator. There's so few outlets for this type of spirit now. This is a great one. Get a bunch of corn-fed white boys all together, hyping each other up, getting ready to go out and crush some faces. How can you possibly not be an appreciator at the very least? This one's real funny. So this is a preview for some show. Definitely not one that I'm going to watch. But just watch through it and see if you catch it. There's an it to catch. Let's see if you catch it. There's actually a number of it's there to catch. Vulpus Persona caught the first one I was talking about. Not a single pull-up was performed. At least as far as we can tell. You don't see a single full-body pull-up. So the actress is not actually there doing 15 pull-ups. If she actually could do 15 pull-ups, I'm sure we would have gotten at least one full body. So she may not have even been able to do one. What's interesting, so another thing here is he said a 99 on her ASVAB score. There's two things wrong with that phrase. Number one, no one in the military calls it a freaking ASVAB score to another person in the military. Number two, I don't think it's possible to get a 99 because it's on a 1 to 99 scale, and I think the top score you can get is 98. Now, it might be possible to get a 99, but I'm pretty sure the top score you can get is 98. You can't actually get a 99. There's so many different things here that are revealed. Also, having a drill sergeant like sitting there and having a little chatty conversation. Yeah, none of this is real. This is obviously created by people who have not been in the military, have no awareness of what it's like in the military. I haven't even been in the military, and I'm aware of some of these things. And they're not targeting it apparently toward military men, because military men will pick up on these sorts of things. And I mean, if I said something wrong in this just now, I'm sure I'm going to have military dudes in the chat telling me that that it was wrong. This is, and I'm pretty sure that the producer of this, I saw something in the replies. I don't remember if it was on this tweet or another one I was looking at that said, I'm pretty sure this is produced by the same guy that did the Yellowstone TV show, Taylor Sheridan. Out of curiosity, I decided to look this up, and it's kind of interesting. I asked Grok, what's the pull-up record for men versus women? So I didn't specify quite what I wanted, but it actually means I get more information than I was originally thinking I wanted. Most pull-ups in 24 hours. Current record stands at 9,250 pull-ups, achieved by Doug Sensor Martin in Long Island, New York, from September 8 to 9, 2024. So 4 months ago. 9,280 pull-ups in 24 hours. Most consecutive pull-ups. 651 consecutive pull-ups by Kenta Adachi, Japan, in March of 2022. And then most pull-ups in 1 minute is 77, achieved by Adam Sandell in Boston on April 20 of this last year. So all these records have just been set. Two of them were set last year. One of them was set about 3 years ago. Now, the most pull-ups in 24 hours. So there's a couple things I want to point out here. For women, most pull-ups in 24 hours. The record is 4,081 pull-ups, and that was achieved in 2021. So less than half, like 40%. But look at this. Most pull-ups in 1 minute, 39 compared to 77. So it's almost exactly half for both of them. And then it didn't show me the most consecutive. That's what I was looking for. I saw these numbers before, but I don't remember exactly what they were. The record for most consecutive pull-ups, men versus women. So men was 651. There's no specific record. However, posts on X mentioned the women's record being 48 pull-ups, although this has not been officially verified in the web results provided. 48 pull-ups. I mean, if you see up here, 48 was the number that I'd heard. And if you see up here, 39 done in 1 minute. So it's, I guess, you would expect that most consecutive is going to be in the vicinity of 40-ish. So maybe she was able to drag it out, but pull it a little bit longer there. But look at the disparity here. 651 versus, let's just be super generous and say 50. So for that, and that's for consecutive. What's extra interesting to me here is that the disparity for consecutive pull-ups is much wider, relatively speaking, than the disparity for pull-ups performed over 24 hours. This is something I just looked this up right now when while I was playing the clip. I had this thought and looked it up, and so I haven't thought about this for a long time yet. But this would be something kind of it's indicating something about men's versus women's physiology that's deeper than just man stronger than woman, because the women they're still lagging way behind, but on a relative basis they start catching up the longer that it goes. I don't think this would be like if you did most pull-ups in a month. I don't think that it's going to be really close. I think the men are still going to be probably at least 50%. But there's an explosiveness to masculine strength that is, I think, indicated here. And it's completely undeniable. You cannot argue with these numbers. 651 to 50. Of course, this guy here is probably like, I don't know, 5'4" and 115 pounds. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure someone's got to have like a weight adjusted metric that they've created here because if you're like I don't know, 6'9" with long arms and you weigh 275, then even if it's all like rock hard muscle, you're probably not going to get 651 consecutive pull-ups. Yeah, and that's another thing is, as Brandon Walsh here says, chicks are smaller too, so pull-ups should be easier for them. You know, you would assume if you're starting with the premise of, well, the men and women are just the same, so a small woman and a small man are going to be about the same. I guarantee you that Kenta Adachi from Japan is not 6'9", 275. He's likely very, very small and wiry. Okay, schizo edits. Vagrant of Rhodes. This is an older thread I came across while I was looking for some schizo edits for something, for a project. See the link in the description. He tweeted this back in August, quote tweeting Paulos, who said, the past is a foreign country. People possess depths of sensitivity and humanity that compared to today's media-soaked, medicalized affect seems literally miraculous. You can't even begin to imagine. And Vagrant of Rhodes says, this is why schizo edits are so powerful. They unleash those pent-up emotions. They cut through to our hearts and uncage the real. They clear the fog from our eyes and ears. Each schizo edit brings us to that place and shows us that it isn't entirely out of reach yet.
It's ending. The country you grew up in no longer exists. Soon it will be unrecognizable. No one is fighting back. Few are even acknowledging it. And the people who lead us are letting it happen. Americans are being replaced.
They are angry at so much and on so many levels. I'm fighting for these forgotten Americans.
Just the purest of art forms. He says, art is reflective of the culture and time in which it emerges. Schizo edits are the perfect encapsulation of modernity, a revolt against everything we know, honoring the past but looking to the future. They're short and live on social media, beautifully fleeting. The schizo edit might be what saves us. I remember seeing them for the first time a few years ago, and it hit me like a truck. That's what true art does. It inspires. It's a big reason why I began posting. I found courage and willpower that I didn't know I still had. We're not descendants of fearful men. Revolt. Hold them back. We bring the storm. Schizo edits are the modern era version of high Renaissance art. History will come to view them as such. They reflect the vision of our past, present, and future from visionaries who can see beyond the void of suppression, which has been artificially constructed by the system. The vitalist vibe of schizo edits is a complete rejection of our geriatric, medicalized, tightly controlled society. It captures the spirit of the past, that yearning to break free of our modernist chains. True emotion which can't be faked or suppressed. Love and anger create real passion. Such art is no mere red pill, no trick of exploitative nostalgia. It is so much more than that, a passage out of the void space of empty modernity. There are portals, and they've appeared on the very screens which comprise our prisons. Powerful. Step into the portal anon.
Joy within you dies. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Wouldn't you love somebody to love? You better find somebody to love.
And it's maybe kind of an obvious observation, but I don't know if people necessarily think about it. The overwhelming majority of these schizo edits are being made by Zoomers. Zoomers or young millennials. I'm sure there's some exceptions to that rule, but this art form is distinctly of it's a kind of a complex derivation of culture, that little cultural sub-factions that are only populated basically by Zoomers and younger millennials. And it all, so they're drawing from these things in the past that they've developed an appreciation for because everything sucks so much now. So they're going back to look for stuff that just hits them. That doesn't have this flat medicalized affect, but something that really gets them right in the gut, makes them feel alive. And then it winds up being really impactful on the older generations. So I bet you the consumers of schizo edits are largely older people than the Zoomers. Older millennials and Gen X. Boomers do not get the schizo edit. Older Gen X probably don't get the schizo edit. I'm talking like, 1970 or older. There's a fascinating cultural thing here where it's art that's being produced by a younger generation about the world of the older generations that's disproportionately being consumed and appreciated by the older generations. It's very, very interesting. Step into the portal and be free. Isaac says, normie Instagram tier need more Sonnenrads. So here's another interesting element of this that I've pondered. There's a particular characteristic of that really defines the Zoomer generation. This is something that Cooper and I talked about privately together. We were discussing this just organically on the phone, and it ended up birthing a bunch of episodes that we did. Now, man, it's been almost a little over a year talking about the generations and like the millennial versus the Zoomer and the Boomer and Gen X and all these different connections, which was one of the things that ultimately led to us picking up on this vibe shift coming with the Silicon Valley guys and the Gen X, this being the Gen X election. There's how do I get in this? So with the Zoomers, there's they have a very keen distinction between cringe and based. I mean, I think cringe and based came from Zoomer culture. Like they're the ones who popularized it. So I'm not saying that they are good at distinguishing what is cringe and what is based. I'm saying they're very sensitive to what they perceive as the difference between these things. And the worst thing you can be is cringe. It's like a death sentence to be cringe. There's all sorts of complicated social dynamics for this with school and with social media and Instagram and the way that it's formed the psyches of the Zoomer generation. The worst thing you could be is cringe. So they get this really as like a coping mechanism. They've had this ironic detachment. They're fully detached. Like it's not cool to be like really into something. But then the problem is, if the entire culture becomes defined by being, or the entire subculture, you know, all the people around you, the people who influence you, that shape the way you see the world, if they all become defined by ironic detachment, then being ironically detached actually makes you cringe. Like now that's something there's like a meta thing here where, wait a second, I'm trying to be ironic and detached because nobody wants to be a part of the cool thing because the cool popular thing is all cringe. But now the cool popular thing is to be ironic and detached. So then they ironically, detachedly get really, really passionate about something. And in the performance of doing that, there's sort of a latent understanding that it's kind of a bit. And so they can actually hide sincere sentiment within this performative bit. It's like doing it as a performance kind of gives you the cover to be able to insert your actual real sentiments. And so there is this really sort of ironic, detached sense to the schizo edits. I mean, detached and schizo. But in that, it's like it opens a door for all that passion to flow through. Now, if I can construct a sufficient ironic, detached facade, then I'm free to be as passionate and expressive as I want to be within that facade, because I can always retreat to like, well, yeah, obviously it's supposed to be like ironic and postmodern. Like, why are you taking it seriously, bro? It's a meme. This genuinely can be taken advantage of now, and it absolutely is taken advantage of. You do the Mott and Bailey of, it's just a meme. But it's this really, really good meme that I really, really like, and I feel a desire to share it and interact with it and engage with it. But it's just a meme, bro. And so then, because of the existence of the schizo edit like this, it then opens the door for the schizo edits with the rotating swastikas or the sonarods. Those are we're allowed to get to those and have those be normalized because we first go through the more normie side of it. And the schizo edits have been getting more and more edgy. And I bet you they're going to continue doing that. For these offerings, I really don't even know where I first saw them. Part of the schizo edit's power is their inherent ability to spread unimpeded by the controls and regulations of the modern world, a powerful feature. All credit to their original creators for their gifts. If you see your work in this thread, please jump in for credit where it's due, and thank you for your contributions to the total psychic war. We're going to win. Of course, someone said this is KKK posting, not schizo posting. And see, here's the thing, is this homo communism. here, they know exactly, they're picking up on exactly what's happening here, this thing that I'm describing. This is normalizing white consciousness, which obviously is, from where things are right now, is directionally toward, narratively wise, it's directionally toward things like the KKK, Nazis, and all this sort of thing. They pick up on exactly what's happening. This is a woke is more correct moment here. This one here, Norsky Frosty. This is so fucking corny. Every single time. It's a he, she. See? It's not this is bad. It's this is cringe. You're being corny. Again, what would spark this sort of reaction, as another woke is more correct moment here, what would spark this sort of reaction is recognizing the sentiment that's actually latent behind this. I found an account that just posts schizo edits, and I have got the absolute mother load now. So you guys are going to get bogged down in schizo edits for a long time. I'm going to do schizo edits until they become cringe. All right. Let's the cozy culture corner. Isaac says, I don't know. They were much more potent 5 years ago when my mutual started the right-wing edit trend. The popular stuff feels watered down now. You could predict that this is where it was going to go. This is like every cultural cycle. This is how these sorts of things get normalized by definition. To be normalized is to be vulgarized. A quick clip here from Darren Beatty. This is the most encouraging development we've seen in this country in a long time. Darren reminds us all how Trump and Elon are reviving the frontier spirit in America.
Both Elon and Donald Trump are sort of quintessential American success stories. I think Trump is the most American expression of being you can ever think of that was instantiated in one person. Musk, obviously, in some respects, is a foreigner. People, kind of jokingly but accurately say African American. And I think in some ways these, Africans like Elon and, a lot of the PayPal crowd has some sort of provenance in Africa. I think that makes sense because, again, these African outposts embody some of that frontier spirit that has dulled a bit in the United States. So I don't think it's simply accidental that a lot of these extremely successful entrepreneurs like Elon Musk have some kind of African connection as sort of the last frontier, as it were. But in any case, these are two figures who would not have been able to achieve their natural expression in any other context but that of the United States of America. Certainly could not have happened in China, but it couldn't have happened in Europe either. Europe is almost equally antithetical to the full expression of this human type. And I think this is the most encouraging development we've seen in this country in a long time. If any configuration, if any kind of constellation or alignment could produce the conditions for American, not only just American supremacy, but for American flourishing of the American people, it's this combination of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So we'll have to see what happens. There's a lot of work to be done, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the outcome.
I think one of the important things that he's observing here is that there's like a level of analysis that focuses on the beliefs and the beliefs and core motivations and principles of the men themselves. And then there's the narrative mimetic level of what they represent, how they impact people spiritually, regardless of their actual positions, their actual thoughts, motivations, beliefs, principles. Because there's a sense in which they are acting out a role. There's a sense, there's a characteristic of destiny here, of fate. They're embodying these personas, and the existence of that persona and its stark instantiation in the human mind means they are themselves affected by their proximity to that persona. It becomes there's a give and take here where to a certain extent they are populating that persona, and to a certain extent that persona is populating them. I think it's important to be able to view things on both levels here. There's like the level, the more standard run-of-the-mill geopolitical analysis, where you're going through like the fact patterns and in that case, it's important to try to tease out exactly what the person's thinking, what they're actually going to do. And then there's the larger, more meta perspective, which in many ways is even more significant and influential than that lower level one. There's a cool story here about SpaceX engineers. Oh, my trackpad battery's dying. I don't want to have to try to... maybe I can plug it in. Hold on a sec. All right. Sorry about that. Don't feel like having my my trackpad die on me in the middle of the show. This is from Alex Stapp. Now, it's just kind of a coincidence that this is coming from him, or is it? He's a co-founder of IFP, or Institute for Progress, an innovation policy think tank. These are some guys to keep an eye on. His co-founder's name just escaped my mind. I want to say it's Caleb Watley or something like that. But anyways, Institute for Progress. Astroflight Simulation on Substack just posted an episode with Stormy just recently, where Stormy mentioned these guys. They're an interesting group to keep an eye on. But that it's just a coincidence he happened to be the guy who shared this story. So this story about SpaceX engineers transporting a rocket from Texas to Florida is insanely hardcore. This is quoting from this story. Once the rocket is down, they need to move it to Florida. NASA and other rocket makers generally move their rockets by sea, but that's slow and expensive. SpaceX doesn't like to do things that are slow and expensive, so they decide to drive it there. Unfortunately, when lying down on its cradle, the rocket can't fit under a standard freeway overpass. This is the point at which, if you did not follow the Haywood algorithm, you would rent a barge and allow the rocket to arrive a few months late. But SpaceX always acts as if any delay at all will kill the company. So they instead set off on the road trip from hell, finding an absurd and tortuous route down back roads from Texas to Florida. Their route has no overpasses, but it does have power lines and traffic lights. So some of the world's best rocket scientists drive in front of the trailer with a flexible 17-foot pole taped to the bumper of their car. Whenever it hits something, they jump out, use large sticks to lift the power line enough that the rocket can pass under, then jump back in their car and drive off the road and around the rocket, it's too wide to pass, so they can intercept the next obstacle. The average speed of the trip is 10 miles per hour, and they drive continuously through the night, sleeping in shifts when they're able to. They have a hard deadline of 5 p.m. on November 24th because Florida closes its roads to oversized loads for a week around Thanksgiving. And they roll into Cape Canaveral on November 24th at 3:21 p.m. after 10 days of continuous driving. What's interesting about SpaceX is they are legally prohibited from hiring any immigrants. They are legally obligated to only hire American citizens, and I believe native-born American citizens, for national security reasons. So that should tell you what this team that's bossing out like this, how that team is comprised. I love this. I think after the like Occupy Wall Street sort of there was some of the WTO and then Occupy Wall Street, as those things following on from each other, and then the 2008 financial crisis happened, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren became more prominent. There's been it's become very fashionable to just by default view every major company with suspicion and contempt. And so I think we've done ourselves a disservice by not allowing these sorts of stories to be told. I try to look for stories like this intentionally, and I'm very grateful to a lot of the people that do they'll create a thread telling a story about, I don't know, some great thing Steve Jobs did or something like that. Because I think these sorts of stories are awesome. Like, to see people they're not involved in the narrative. They're just like, we've got to get a job done. These are our constraints, and we're going to absolutely max out our own capacity to reach these goals. I think it's awesome. I think it's inspiring. I love seeing those kinds of stories. This is from January 3rd. Loki Juliana says, Trump made an executive personnel announcement with "Let's see what happens." And I'd missed this one. Let's see what happens. What? Here it is. I've never seen a personnel announcement like this. I guess the job is worth the humiliation it comes with, says Sam Stein, an utter shitlib. This is the statement from President Trump. I am pleased to announce Morgan Ortagus as Deputy Special Presidential Envoy for Middle East Peace to the Honorable Stephen Witkoff. Now, Stephen Witkoff is a very close personal friend of Trump's. They've been friends for like 30 or 40 years. Very, very close. So this guy is going to be the special, this chick is going to be the Deputy Special Presidential Envoy to Stephen Witkoff. Early on, Morgan fought me for 3 years, but hopefully has learned her lesson. These things usually don't work out, but she has strong Republican support, and I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for them. Let's see what happens. She will hopefully be an asset to Steve, a great leader and talent, as we seek to bring calm and prosperity to a very troubled region. I expect great results, and soon. And then it just gives her bio. Morgan serves as a spokesperson at the Department of State. Pompeo. Oh, man. Imagine being this poor chick. She's going to get a special cabinet position, and it gets announced with, hopefully she's learned her lesson. I don't expect this to work out, but I don't know. Let's see what happens. I do think it's interesting that if she's going to be the Deputy Special Presidential Envoy to a very close personal friend of his, then I would imagine that Witkoff himself probably is not the one who's been lobbying for this. A bunch of people really wanted to get her in there. And so he's putting her with a very close, trusted personal friend. So I'd imagine that Witkoff's job here is basically to, where she's concerned, is basically to try to minimize whatever damage she can do. I want to give a shout out in honor of this great American holiday, the day of the electoral justice protest anniversary. Shout out to Charles Haywood. Jason Rink, great friend of the show. Documentarian, he says, American Shaman, his documentary, available now on Apple TV. Shout out to our boy getting some on Apple TV. When Jacob Chansley entered the U.S. Senate chamber on January 6, 2021, he became the face of the Capitol riot. This feature-length documentary is the untold story of that day and the aftermath.
My name is Jake Angeli.
The name he uses is Jake Angeli.
Jake Angeli.
Jakey Angeli.
Jake Angeli, who is known as the Q Shaman. Absurd? Yes.
I'm the one that was in the Senate wearing the Viking horns and the face paint, and I'm the one that was sitting in Pence's chair.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
If I get arrested, Gandhi got arrested a lot too, didn't he? I did not destroy any property. I did not vandalize. I walked through the open door boldly, without fear. I didn't do anything wrong. It's public property. That's my Capitol building.
Show us no attacking, no assault, remain calm. We have the right to peacefully assemble.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
I wanted to be in Mike Pence's chair because I believe Mike Pence is a traitor. He stabbed Donald Trump in the back. It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
Your time in the Supreme Court is nearing its end.
What are we calling the guy with the horns on his helmet?
I'm calling him an eccentric and a shaman.
Oh! 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 Yeah! Freedom! Donald Trump is still your president! You keep interrupting me.
Because you're lying! That's why! Because everything out of you people's mouths doesn't come true.
We're trying to monopolize all the resources and all the labor in our country.
I was going to run for the presidency.
Take out the UN.
We can go to frickin' Jupiter if we want to.
I will not suffer your Q people after this. I knew what you were day one, and I know what you are now, and I'm sick of it.
Sedition may be a charge.
I hear the FBI is looking for information about me.
Well, an Arizona man is one of the most recognizable protesters D.C. police are right now trying to find.
Yeah, I talked to the FBI. It's all good.
Did they call you?
No, I called them.
Should I be talking to the FBI without a lawyer?
I haven't spoken to him, and I really, really need to speak to my son.
Oh, man, I'm looking forward to this one. Jason is a very good documentary producer. So if he, so I have no doubt that it's going to be very good. And he got it on Apple TV. So shout out to our boy. His name is Jacob Chansley, but he's gone by Jake Angeli, I think is what he said. So it's not his actual name, but it's like the public name that he's going with. I presume. I haven't followed his story super closely, which is part of the reason why I'm interested in watching this. Reports are that Trump is planning to grant clemency to at least 1,000 January 6 electoral justice protesters on day one, right after the inauguration. If he does that, oh man, he is going to buy himself so much political capital. It's a move that needs to happen. So today, on the celebration of this great day, we also got to see a historical first. Kamala Harris becomes the first woman to certify her own election loss.
70. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes. 70. The votes for...
Oh, man. What a beautiful day. Today, this is from Jeremiah Poff. What a name. Jeremiah Poff. He's got Latin in the bio. He says, today was the first time that not a single congressional Democrat objected to the victory of a Republican presidential candidate since 1988. So I have got to admit, I got a prediction wildly wrong. And I've admitted this before, but it's time to really, really admit it now. There's nothing left. I thought that there was going to be drawn out lawfare. I thought that it was going to be challenged. They have just completely capitulated. When they totally laid down and capitulated immediately after the election, I was like, okay, there's going to be, by January 6th, there's going to be something. There's going to be some sort of obstruction, some sort of legal proceedings, trying to get the Supreme Court involved. Something along these lines is going to happen. But this is just complete and total capitulation to the point where they're not even objecting to his victory. It's remarkable. I mean, and really, like, what? Are they going to take it to the Supreme Court? You think the Supreme Court is going to uphold anything? No. They've got the House. They got the Senate. They got the Supreme Court. They got the White House. Absolute, complete, and total electoral domination. And Trump's capitalizing on it. This from War Clandestine says, a month ago, I thought Trump was just bullying Trudeau into submission over tariffs. Now I'm starting to believe Trump might actually absorb Canada and Greenland. Are we witnessing a Louisiana Purchase-esque scenario unfolding? And I absolutely do believe that we are. Where's this tab here? Here we go. This from Trump. He says, many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits and subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat. Justin Trudeau knew this and resigned. If Canada merged with the U.S., there would be no tariffs. Taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of the Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Together, what a great nation it would be. They were entirely serious about this, man. Trump Jr. is in Greenland right now. And the Greenland Prime Minister just said, I can't remember the exactly what he said or what sort of statement it was, but he made overtures toward the fact that they want independence from Denmark. Which, if the Greenland Prime Minister is saying we want independence from Denmark, while the United States is saying we want to buy Denmark, these are pretty easy to put two and two together. Now, I don't know how I mean, I would expect there to be some sort of obstruction to this sort of thing happening, but capitulation is happening everywhere. So it's entirely plausible that this... I think that we cannot rule out the possibility that the annexation of Canada and Greenland happens a lot more quickly and smoothly than we expected. I'm not betting on that, but I'm saying the possibility isn't zero. So Justin Trudeau has resigned, and all you need to see... Well, no, let me say this more precisely. He has said he is going to resign. In a way I understand it, I'm not an expert on Canadian politics, because why would you ever want to be an expert in Canadian politics? But the way that I understand it is he has effectively dismissed Parliament until something like March 25th, at which point there will be an election announced. That's the way I'm understanding it. Might not have those details exactly correct. But so he has not actually resigned. He has said he's going to resign, and he put the Parliament into prorogue, which is, I had to ask Grok what prorogue meant, and it means basically, it's spelled like prologue except with an L instead of an R, so it's like Chinese prorogue. My understanding is basically it's like, all right, there's going to be a dramatic change made to the government, so just kind of put a pin in it for now, come back at this point here, and the new change is going to be effected. It'll be interesting to see who that replacement is, because I can see a bunch of different stories playing out from here. I know the betting markets are all in on the Canadian Mitt Romney, but I don't think that's necessarily a foregone conclusion. I also don't think that it's necessarily a foregone conclusion that Trudeau is resigning. I'm depending with a lot of this on conversations I've had with Jason Miranchuk and his take on it. And he has been expecting, and I definitely see his argument for this, and I think there's a lot of merit to it. He's been expecting a dark MAGA Trudeau turn. Because if Trudeau all of a sudden threw in with Trump in a way, sort of the same way that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, if Trudeau had an Eric Adams sort of turn, he could lock himself in for probably another decade. Now, I don't know why he would announce that he's resigning and then not resign. I think the fact that he's announcing that he's resigning makes it a lot more likely that he is actually resigning. But by doing this period, whether it's serious or not, Trump has effectively completely disabled any sort of politician in Canada from being able to independently govern the country, or even give the pretense of independently governing the country. He has thoroughly and permanently inserted himself formally into Canadian politics. And if the United States buys Greenland, then Canada's not far behind. Now, I don't think that this is I think it's inevitable. As we're watching the reemergence of Monroe Doctrine American politics, I think it's inevitable that something like this happens. Because we're going to go through a period of great economic turmoil. And the rise in nationalism all over the place is authentic. There's authentic spirit desiring nationalism all throughout the West. Europe's going to get it the worst. America has been involved in a whole bunch of boondoggles. We've funded a whole bunch of boondoggles all over the world. And there's, at this point, the momentum is unstoppable. That America's going to be pulling out of a lot of this, formally. And a lot of these dollars that are getting redirected into all of these boondoggles to line the pockets of European bankers and technocrats is just not gonna continue. So America's redefining. This is our sphere of influence. Fuck off. Again, Stormy and Astroflight talk about this in detail. This is part of the significance, as Pete Quinones speculated, this is part of the significance of Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Because America's foreign policy is going to be focused on the Western Hemisphere for at least this presidential term. And probably for the foreseeable future. Because once the country starts making moves like this, now you're redirecting all the institutional focus. And so you're going to create, what's the term, the physics term, not entropy, but inertia. You're going to create like bureaucratic inertia in favor of remaining with this focus on the Western Hemisphere. So right now they're talking about Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal. But pretty soon you're probably going to hear a lot more conversations about actual South American countries. Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. There's going to be a lot more focus on that. It's interesting to me that both Elon and Eric Prince have been talking a lot about Venezuela. Elon not as much recently, but Eric Prince has been on this for a long time. So, we're transitioning into a new age. And this new age is going to have different rules, different focuses, different motivations, different values. And I think it's happening a lot quicker than anybody anticipated. Even those of us who have been bulls on this new age, at least I can speak for myself, I've been surprised at the way it's progressing. So Elon, if you haven't, right now, as things are, and this could end today, I don't know. But as things are progressing right now, you've put on notifications. Go if you don't have an account on X, go create one. Go follow Elon and turn on notifications. Because he is the tip of the spear of like every important political thing that's happening right now. And even there's a lot of people I can see who are on Twitter regularly who aren't picking up on what's happening here. They think that Elon is just wildly shooting from the hip. They're talking about how, he needs to like step away from Twitter for a little bit, and I think he needs to calm down, and the Trump administration is going to get really annoyed, and there's stories leaking out that Trump thinks Elon is clingy, and they're kind of like at odds with each other. Bullshit. I'm old enough to remember like 3 weeks ago when we were being drowned in stories about how Elon and Trump are glued at the hip, going everywhere together, doing everything together. Elon's paying $2,000 a night to literally live there. He's the real president. First it was, they're co-presidents. Then it's Elon's the real president. And then this whole dust-up about the H-1B thing happens, which just so happens to completely radically shift the conversation in the immigration restrictionist direction. And I remember like 4 weeks ago when everyone was talking about how the immigration thing's going to be so, just imagine all the news pieces with the crying abuelas, and it's going to be so hard for them to ever even be able to deliver on the illegal immigration stuff. Well, now the conversation is, the illegal immigration isn't the whole thing. We actually need to do something about legal immigration too. And there's broad consensus on this point. But he's just like wildly shooting from the hip. And immediately after that, he starts going full bore on the UK. Absolutely nuking them. Tweeting over and over and over and over again. Why would you do that? If you're Elon Musk, you own Twitter, you have probably the largest, most actionable pile of data available to anyone based on sentiment analysis and trends, and he's owned the platform for a couple of years now. And this is not the first narrative that he's intentionally seeded. He's very obviously doing this intentionally and with the full backing of the Trump administration. They know who the enemy is. Every single thing that he's doing is driving a stake through the heart of globalism. The Davos world. The World Economic Forum people. There's the consistent thread through every single thing that he's doing. Not just the words that he's saying, but the actions that he's taking, which is making life real hard on the European Central Bank and the IMF and the EU and NATO. Because they are the enemies. They are the enemies of Trump. They're the enemies of Elon. If you think that this is just Elon like, he's literally physically present with Trump while he's tweeting about this stuff. And you think that Trump needs to, like, people like, hey, we need Trump to get on the phone with Elon and tell him to chill. They're literally in the same room together while this is happening. Glued at the hip. If you think that this is not an explicit administration priority, I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah, Straight Buster says, not so subtly going after the city of London. Indeed. Yeah, this was Politically Catholic here says, I heard someone say that if we wanted to make Greenland and Canada American territories, then we'd have to pass a constitutional right to secession as well. That was, I think, a conversation that was happening in the voice chat on the King Pill Discord this last week. And I think it was a suggestion. I don't think that we would have to. I think that it was a suggestion that that's something that could be done, that you could use that as an opportunity to create the right to secession. I don't think that there's ever going to be a right to succession. I think we're in the territory acquisition mode, not the territory relinquishment mode. So this is, of late, Elon has really honed in on STARMER. And this is all regarding this story. Everyone's like, oh, the story's been around for like 10 years. And why is everyone just talking about it now? Because it is, I'm telling you, this is a policy of the Trump administration that they want to destabilize the UK government. They want regime change in the UK. And through Elon, they're executing a regime change operation in the UK. Andrew Tate has thrown his hat in the ring and says he's going to run for British Prime Minister. This is another one that I'm going to tell you guys. This is not zero chance of happening. I don't think there's a good chance of it happening, but it's not zero. Jason mentioned in the group chat last night as we were discussing this, he said, imagine having Conor McGregor and getting these synchronized, Conor McGregor and Andrew Tate. But what better way to rub the UK's absolute face in their own shit than to install Andrew Tate as their prime minister? Hip Hop Enforcement says Brit Bong here. It is zero. Don't be too hasty, my friend. I mean, I'm saying it's probably like, I don't know, 15 or 20%. But there is a world out there in which Andrew Tate winds up being the British Prime Minister. So Macron is accusing Elon Musk of election interference. So this is their response. They've been the EU has been reeling, and by the EU I'm just speaking broadly, like the European power centers have been reeling since Elon went ham on this issue, and now they're striking back. You can see this coordinated, a bunch of different ones all out there saying, well, he's interfering in the election. Can you believe he's interfering in our elections? And it's falling on absolute deaf ears. Nobody gives a shit. There are, for the sake of YouTube, there are grooming gangs who have been imported, protected, and enfranchised into these communities intentionally, consciously by the leadership. This is exactly when it's right to have election interference. So Elon responds to it. He says, oh, like that time STARMER called, and he tags Trump, a racist and said the British government should do everything to stop him? Or when STARMER sent British Labour Party members to campaign in the US against President Trump this year? And he links to, here's that twat Keir Starmer calling President Trump a racist and an affront to humanity because George Floyd died of an overdose. When Jane Sr. requested a meeting with Starmer over the Muslim bleep gangs in 2021, he ignored her. He's a Britain-hating BLM scum. He's putting a fine point on it. This is why the Trump administration is perfectly cool with this as an official policy of the Trump administration. Starmer sent British Labour Party members to campaign for Kamala Harris. And now he's getting his just desserts, good and hard. And then, just to give you guys an idea, I'm just going to scroll for a minute here through Elon's Twitter feed. Pinned right now, a poll. America should liberate the people of Britain from their tyrannical government. Is he memeing or is he serious? The answer is yes. Following the news of Trudeau resigning as prime minister, Trump releases a new statement calling on Canada to join the U.S. in a unified state. Signal boosting Tucker Carlson talking to Billy Bush. This is a cool video. A rocket launch into space filmed from the ISS. You can see the rocket take off right down here. Norwegian Prime Minister sits down with Bill Gates to warn against Elon Musk interfering in other countries. You can't make this shit up. Elon, what is irony? I'll remind you guys. We were talking about this in the group chat last night. I'll remind you guys. Well, let me get to this in just a second before I say that, because there's a particular tweet I'm scrolling to. Home of the free, land of the brave. He's patriotism posting. Barry Weiss. Britain now stands shamed before the world. The public's suppressed wrath is bubbling to the surface in petitions, calls for a public inquiry, and demands for accountability. Ted Cruz, staggering and unspeakably horrible. Elon retweets it. Piers Morgan, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer must order a full no-holds-barred national inquiry into exactly what happened in the appalling gang bleep scandal. Blah, 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 blah. Elon Musk, absolutely. The tweet I just read you guys. Nigel Farage, Keir Starmer is sweeping the failures of the establishment under the carpet. Nothing less than a full national inquiry into the gangs will do. Yes, signal boosting Nigel Farage. This takes guilt by association to a new level. Today, the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists published a 5-month-long investigation into the fact that its CEO was following Tommy Robinson on X. You read that correctly. Not that he praised him, nor that he amplified or reposted him, that he was following him from his own personal X account. A subcommittee was established with a barrister appointed to investigate in order to reflect the gravity of the situation. Even more ludicrous, the investigation found that on the balance of probabilities, it was deemed that this was an accidental follow. The outcome? The CEO has been forced to issue a personal apology for his actions. In this apology, he has apologized for the hurt, distress, fear, and anger that this caused. This is utter madness from a body of therapists. Elon, insane. 2025 is looking good. Retweets Nancy Mace talking about why 158 Democrats voted to keep sex offenders in the U.S. Here's a list of MPs who voted against deporting foreign rapists. These people are evil and need arresting. We are being invaded. Treason. Unconscionable. More Tommy Robinson propaganda. More attacks on the prime minister. This meme. Republicans, can we at least deport all the rapists in... I don't know how many of these words I want to say out loud, but you guys can see which words here. 158 Democrats. No. Geert Wilders talking about Tommy Robinson. Starmer practically says that anyone demanding a new inquiry into how the gang issue is handled is part of the far right. Elon, what an insane thing to say. The real reason is that it would show how Starmer repeatedly ignored the pleas of vast numbers of little girls and their parents in order to secure political support. Starmer is utterly despicable. I'm telling you guys, he's going absolutely ham on this. I've followed him and I've had notifications on for his tweets for like a year and a half. I've seen all the different patterns of how he tweets. He has never gone this hard on a specific issue before. Starmer was deeply complicit in the mass bleeps in exchange for votes. That's what the inquiry would show. This other legacy media defines far right. Nancy Mace talking about sexual crimes by illegal migrants. What's the theme here? Sexual crimes. Labor blocks child bleep gang inquiry to hide its shameful past. He's been going after Jess Phillips. I think he might have even said like she needs to be the punishment for treason. If he hasn't, he's come close. Talking about deep empathy, not shallow empathy. He's talking about how these official institutions are using empathy to cover for criminals and inflicting crimes upon their population that they're responsible for. The British legal system is not serving its people. Every single tweet is about this. Labor's response to decades-long failure on gangs targeting young white girls as mostly Pakistani heritage men is yada, yada, yada. From Liz Truss. A little bit of SpaceX propaganda. Bow-tied Ranger. I know Rangers who were totally unbothered by combat but have PTSD from accidentally walking into rooms where Afghan men were involved in things with little boys. Elon. Many such stories. The Telegraph did a very thorough summary of what's been happening in the UK. Signal boosting more stuff about it. Still can't believe Doge is real. Drop a little Doge tweet in there. A little AI thing. Drone Show retweet. Gordon Brown sold those little girls for votes. Had this election not been won by Donald Trump, civilization would be lost. And here's this one. He's been dancing around this issue for a little while. But the conversation's been escalating. First, it starts with the gangs, this criminal behavior that's being allowed here. Then it's who has been allowing this, turning a blind eye and focused on other things and allowing this to happen through like negligence. Now, the conversation is escalating. He shares this Rick and Morty meme. Taxpayers, what is my purpose? You fund a lavish lifestyle for elite pedophiles. Aww. Now, with this, I'll remind you that just a couple of months ago, Peter Thiel went on Joe Rogan, and he went out of his way to pull Bill Gates and Reid Hoffman into the conversation and talk about their connections to Jeffrey Epstein. No, like 99% of Peter Thiel's conversational awkwardness on interviews that people like notice, like what's going on with this guy? He's like barely human. 99% of that awkwardness is him being extremely careful to choose his words properly to avoid unnecessarily targeting a specific person or a specific group. He abstracts everything away and speaks in broad terms. He goes well out of his way and endures extreme social awkwardness to maintain this. So when he starts identifying people by name, you got to listen. He didn't just identify them. He brought the conversation back to them multiple times when Joe was trying to move on to something else. Part of what's happening here is the unveiling of elite P-word rings. I don't know if I could say that whole phrase or not, but you guys get what I'm talking about. This is part of the focus here. And reminder about the potential publication of the Epstein list and the Diddy trials that are happening right now. All right, I got to keep this moving here because we got to leave here shortly. I'm going to drop these stories out today. I was going to talk a little bit about some Maha stuff, but I'm going to save that because I've talked too much already, and I'm not going to have time to do all of these. I'll save these for tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show is probably going to be a little later in the day because we have church in the morning as well, and I'll be out for that, and then I'll be doing the show when I get home. Let's talk a little bit about anti-gravity. This is from Brian Romelli. There's been some updates on the story, the Sean Ryan thing we talked about on the last show. There's been some updates. I haven't been able to stay completely up to date on it, so I'm going to hold that off until I got more information. There's a couple of conversations and interviews and stuff I need to listen to get fully updated on it. But it's absolutely a psyop, exactly as we were saying. And I think there's some interesting things to be drawn from that story. But regarding the anti-gravity stuff, this is what stuck out to me the most. And like I said I said, be very skeptical of everything that's being presented here. But the one thing that's clear is no matter who is motivating this psyop, at its root, the desire is disclosure of some types of advanced He called it gravitic propulsion systems. I again think he meant anti-gravitic, but this is or whoever wrote it meant anti-gravitic. Maybe they intentionally said gravitic so that it would sound wrong, so it sort of gets there, but it doesn't. Anyways, you can run down the PSYOP trails all you want. The fact is, whoever did this, for whatever motivation they had, part of the desire here was disclosure of this anti-gravitic technology. And I'm telling you, it's going to happen. I've been telling you for a while. This is coming. And this is not just a PSYOP in itself. This technology actually exists. I said that 2025 is the year that conventional physics gets BTFO'd. It's coming. I don't know exactly what route it's going to take. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Some of the evidence for this is public, and I can point you in the direction of a few of those things, like this, what I'm about to talk about here. Some of it is not public, and I can't point you in that direction, and I just have to tell you to trust me, bro. This is from Brian Romelli. He says, you folks know about the upcoming levity or anti-gravity reveal I prepared for you in 2020. It was common knowledge in 1956 among researchers in electronics and propulsion. Ionized mercury spinning faster than the speed of sound. And then it all stopped. Buckle up. So this is a thread from 2020. The G engines are coming, 1956. Because of publicly available research, it was assumed to be a career choice in this Young Engineers magazine. The work of the Gravity Research Foundation shows sustained levity and made demonstrations at MIT in 1954. Then it all disappeared. By far, the most potent source of energy is gravity. Using it as power, future aircraft will attain the speed of light. There's an article for it here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's available. If you go to kingpilled.com or kingpilled.substack.com or look for Kingpilled on Substack, then I'll have the links to this so you can go peruse them yourselves. And this one here, Anti-Gravity, Power of the Future, by G. Harry Stein. There is a good chance that the rocket will be obsolete for space travel within 50 years. Some of us have been concentrating on the development of the rocket as the possible power plant for outer space propulsion. We've fired a lot of them, and we've prayed that they will work in outer space. We've also learned a lot about what's out there by using rockets, and probably we will take the first few faltering steps into space with rocket power plants. But recent discoveries indicate that the spaceship of the future may be powered by anti-gravity devices. These, instead of using brute force to overcome gravity, will use the force of gravity itself, much as an airplane uses the air to make it fly. Sir William Crookes, the English scientist who developed the cathode ray tube we now use for television, made extensive investigations of levitation phenomena, a field that once belonged to vaudeville magicians. Scientists, reasoning that if they believed his reports of weird green glows and vacuum tubes, they should also look into Crookes' levitation studies, have been making slow but steady progress. Others have been investigating the fields of gravitic isotopes, jet electron streams, and the mechanics of the electron shells of atoms. Townsend T. Brown, there you go, an American investigator, has gone even further than that. There are rumors that Brown has developed a real anti-gravity machine. There are many firms working on the problems of anti-gravity. The Glenn I. Martin Company, Bell Aircraft, General Electric, Sperry Rand Corp, and others. Rumors have been circulating that scientists have built disc airfoils, 2 feet in diameter, incorporating a variation of the simple 2-plate electrical condenser, which, charged to a potential of 50,000 volts, has achieved a speed of 17 feet per second, with a total energy input of 50 watts. A 3-foot diameter disc airfoil, charged to 150 kilovolts, turned out such an amazing performance that the whole thing was immediately classified. Flame jet generators making use of the electrostatic charge discovered in rocket exhausts have been developed, which will supply charges up to 15 million volts. Several important things have been discovered with regard to gravity propulsion. For one, the propulsive force doesn't act on only one part of the ship it is pushing. Sorry, this stuff's really small and it's hard to read. It acts on all parts within the gravity field created by the gravitic drive. It probably is not limited by the speed of light. Gravity-powered vehicles have apparently changed direction, accelerated rapidly at very high Gs, and stopped abruptly without any heavy stresses being experienced by the measuring devices aboard the vehicle and within its gravity propulsion field. This control is done by changing the direction in intensity and polarity of the charge on the condenser plates of the drive unit, a fairly simple task for scientists. So this is from this article written, I don't know, what is this? June of 1957. This sort of stuff has been out there for a long time now. And there was a specific tweet that someone linked in here that I was going to read, maybe or play. It's a video. And maybe it was in the original one here. That's not it. Well, it was there every time I scrolled down to it before, but I should have bookmarked it directly. What it was a video of Mark Andreessen talking about how when they were talking to regulators regarding AI, the regulators told them, they were like, "What? You can't just like classify math." And they were like, "Of course we can. We did it before. We classified entire fields of physics. This is what they're talking about." This is why the anti-gravity and the connection to the drones thing, that's what really stuck out to me about that letter. Because whether this is a regime op to discredit conservatives or to air out Sean Ryan and discredit him, or he's like some sort of limited hangout, or if this is a legitimate whistleblower effort, or if this is a counter psyop to the regime being orchestrated by some people, whatever this actual story is, and I think it's probably a combination of all of the above, whatever the actual story is, the bare fact of it is someone wants us to know that this technology exists out there. There's a lot of reasons for that. Not all of them are sinister, because the implications on the model of conventional physics and the artificial constraints that we've placed on ourselves, that we've factored into our assumptions about energy and the downstream effects of that, our capacity as a species, those are going to be directly challenged. Suddenly, traveling off planet is not going to be some sort of like science fiction thing. $40 trillion in debt is going to be nothing. There's going to be some massive transformations over the next decade, and probably less than that. This came out in 2023. Dr. Disclosure here says, he warned you, but you didn't listen. Rep. Eric Burleson, who's this guy right here, I think he's from Missouri, he says, what it appears to be is somebody has discovered something, some advanced form of propulsion or technology that may actually change all of our lives, but clearly it's in an experimental phase, or we're experimenting with. This is Tim Burchett, who I've played a couple of videos of him just recently, and he was supposed to be on a space that was done with Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemate, the guy who he had on his show. They did a space where they clarified some of these things. I haven't listened to it yet. It's been on my list of things to do. And Burchett was supposed to be there and wasn't there. So this is extra interesting to me. I looked this up and found out the story. This is from October of 2023. Could Congress form a select committee to investigate UFOs? These lawmakers hope so. A group of lawmakers in the House of Representatives met with chiefs from the Department of Defense and National Intelligence community on Thursday to discuss the unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. But Representative Scott Perry, Republican from Pennsylvania, described the effort as meaningless because of the extensive security clearances required. We can't even find out who is allowed to know, Perry told News Nation. The meeting was requested after the House held a hearing in July where Air Force veteran and former intelligence officer David Grush could not produce details about any UAP crash retrieval programs because it was deemed classified. Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee, who led the hearing, wrote a letter in August asking Inspector General of the intelligence community, Thomas Monheim, to brief Congress about which federal government programs are involved in crash retrievals and inspections. Burchett, who recently launched the UAP caucus, speculated that the meeting was the federal government's way of keeping information under wraps. You have to imagine Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Manhattan Project, thousands of people working on the atomic bomb, and less than 12 knew what it was, he said. Most congressional lawmakers stayed mum coming out of the hearing, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who told reporter Matt Laszlo that she's, quote, a Girl Scout about these things. But Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri was convinced that an entity tied to the federal government or foreign was developing an, quote, advanced form of propulsion after the meeting with intelligence officials. What it appears to be is somebody has discovered something, some advanced form of propulsion or technology that may actually change all of our lives, but clearly it's in an experimental phase, or we're experimenting with it. Reporter Joe Khalil posted a statement from the DoD Inspector General about the Thursday briefing, saying the oversight agency does not determine what information is classified and who has the security clearance for it. UAPs have piqued curiosity from both sides of the aisle. Burleson said he wants to push newly elected House Speaker Mike Johnson to create a select committee with Burchett as the chairman. Give him the authority, let him chase this rabbit, Burleson told Daily Wire, talking about Burchett. The American people and members of Congress know what is going on. So if we create a committee that has a purpose for this, it's hard to deny us that we should not have access to the information, he said. Burchett said Johnson seems very receptive to the idea. So my contention with this sort of thing would be that this is these sorts of projects are even outside of the ken of most legislators, regulators, cabinet officials, maybe even senior military leaders. There's some senior military leaders who probably aren't read into all of this stuff. And a lot of this sort of development has taken place completely off the books in black programs, and which from their inception have been barely straddling the line between legal and formal and non-legal and informal. So there's no doubt in my mind from the books I've read, the interviews that I've heard, the old news articles that I've seen, that there's no doubt in my mind that this sort of advanced propulsion and energy technology has existed for a long time. There's a lot of people who've stumbled upon various sorts of things and magically found themselves with unaliving with 2 bullets to the back of the head. Like, that sort of thing obviously has existed for a reason, because this sort of thing does exist. It is out there, but it can't stay hidden forever. Eventually, you're going to get some category of the elite class who takes power and says, we don't want to keep this hidden anymore. We want to start taking advantage of this. Because when it's hidden, you can't take full advantage of it. Yeah, the internet was originally a classified military technology, and then it was released and commercialized, and that's how it attains the fullness of its potential. I would assume the majority of this of the AI technology, by the time it's reaching commercial availability, it's already been in use in deeply classified operations and such for a long time. And so we're running this same game now. This sort of extreme propulsion technology has to be released to the public. It can't be kept under wraps forever, because having that sort of thing would solve a huge number of problems that we currently have. All right, last subject here. I've got 2 things to read you guys. Then I got to get out of here. Do me a favor and hit the like button, folks. Appreciate you guys. This is from Powerful Mutual Jim Sharp, a regular here on the show. He's quote tweeting this from Kyla Scanlon, who says, "A thing I've noticed but haven't been able to properly describe is what seems to be a mentorship problem. When you ask people in their 40s and 50s how they got their start, it's like, well, some guy took a chance on me and then I never left his side for 10 years. But many don't seem to do that for people younger than them. It's pure anecdote, but it's an interesting problem that points again to the shifting workforce, digitization, maybe, like remote work makes it hard, and perhaps some career ladder issues across the board. Delayed retirements, lack of upward mobility for the 40s and 50s, I don't know." And Jim says, let me pose a scenario here. Let's say it's 1984, and Bill is 48 at a senior level in the department, and Joe is 19, just starting in the same department. Bill and Joe went to the same high school and were both pretty good at football. In fact, they both know the head coach. Bill sees Joe work hard and takes him under his wing, and eventually Joe moves up after learning the ropes. Let's look at scenario 2. Let's say it's 2023. Bill is 48 at a senior level in the department, and Juan, who is 36, is just starting in the same department. Not only did Bill and Juan not go to the same high school, they aren't even born in the same country. Juan speaks barely legible English, doesn't care for American football, and mostly keeps to himself at breaks. Bill can barely understand him, so he gives him as little responsibility as possible, and no one gets mentored. When Bill retires in 10 years, there is no one to take his place, so the company hires Ramsing on a work visa. This is how a country dies, slowly, and for the god of GDP. What he's illustrating here is the collapse of leadership at all levels. related to this, I want to read this piece. We're going to wrap this up today with this from the Old Glory Club Substack. An absolute banger from Red Hawk. Remembering Who We Are. This was published on January 1st. I like Sam Hyde. His unique brand of millennial humor speaks to me. I recently met him at one of his shows and told him how refreshing it was to listen to over 2 hours of comedy without a single joke being made at the expense of white men. He laughed and said that he's going to keep doing what he's doing, the best answer he could have given. In the wake of the pivotal discussion over legal immigration, quote unquote, and the H-1B visa program taking place on Twitter over the past week, Sam Hyde decided to weigh in as well. I like how even though he's a comedian, he was serious enough to take the time to address this extremely important issue in an insightful and entertaining way. You guys are well aware of this at this point. Over the last week, this debate has been blown wide open and many people have gone full mask off. Elon Musk and others have been ratioed into oblivion with every single one of their points expertly countered. Even with the resulting backlash and censorship of certain accounts, the point has been made. The American people are done with being taken advantage of. Arguments of competition with China, elite human capital, and GDP growth do not hold sway over people anymore. We will stand our ground because this is our home and we have nowhere else to go. China is going to outcompete us. That's a statement I've been hearing my entire life. What does this even mean? Outcompeting us in what? GDP? A worthless number on a sheet of paper that shows us nothing about the conditions of actual Americans? On production? On production of what? Billions of cheap products that don't function and don't last? They'll win the next tech race. Will they? What have they built? Where's this amazing technology that China has that we don't? Do they have colonies on Mars or lightsabers? And even if they did, why do we have to import millions of allegedly high IQ workers from India to beat them? Is China importing these genius-level Indians? What about Japan or Russia or Turkey? No, they aren't. I refuse to believe that India, a country with almost 2 billion people and mountains of trash so high they need warning beacons on top of them to make sure planes don't crash into them, has some hidden and sacred technology hiding under it that can only be found if we import millions of its people into our home. Canada has already speedrun this. Over the last decade, Canada has imported millions of Indians. Has Canada become a new leader in tech? No. What they got was a total breakdown of social norms and infrastructure to the point where food banks in Toronto are closed due to theft, and ethnic blood feuds between Sikhs and Hindus are being carried out in the streets. We've seen this play out, we know it's a lie, and we know this is just about money. Perhaps the most mask-off reaction to this has been from former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, in which his diagnosis of the problem of America is that we need more nerds and fewer jocks. Ignoring the recent findings of how Ramaswamy came into his wealth, no surprise that it was through technicality via defrauding with a fake product. And I will say I don't completely agree with that assessment, but it's not a big deal to me. This is such a fundamental disconnect as to what makes America great. Americans do not work like slaves, which is why corporations have for generations imported people who will work like slaves. This is not something to aspire to, and we've proven that we don't need it. America made it to the moon without this subversive live-to-work mentality. We would surrender backyard baseball, trick-or-treating, Sunday church brunches, and high school dances for a class of mindless drones focused on nothing beyond themselves except working for a soulless multinational corporation. Do we want to view our people as nothing more than individual and replaceable economic units? How well has that worked out for family formation? Thinking that men and women are interchangeable for the sake of the economy has resulted in parents forming families later than ever, working more hours than ever, and having fewer children than ever. Competing with these bugman societies that run on slave labor is not possible, let alone even desirable. And what's worse is that discussions like these always lead to pushback from normie and boomer conservatives about how you sound like a communist and you must pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There's a subversive strain in normie conservatism that sees this bugman mentality of debasing yourself into working in a hovel for $2 a day as an equivalent of the Protestant work ethic. We are Faustians, and people like Ramaswamy keep outing themselves as being nothing like us, possessed of a totally foreign way of thinking. Our people have always been about quality over quantity. And while quantity helps the bottom line of a billion-dollar corporation that outsources its workforce to sweatshops in the third world, this does not help the American people. The same person who labels you a leftist for talking about corporations taking advantage of Americans will in the same breath complain about how all of our products are made in China and break every 5 minutes. As Sam Hyde so eloquently put it in his address to Elon Musk, quote, Apple and Google might win, but America will be worse, end quote. It's great that I can set up Starlink on top of the Rocky Mountains and stream Netflix, but in a country where everyone is too fat to reach the mountaintop, does it matter? I don't care about ideology. I don't care about labels. I care about actual solutions to real problems that are affecting our home. I'm tired of the Joel Berrys, James Lindsays, and Vivek Ramaswamis of the world who are trying to fool us once again with the same old regime that we've been living under since 1945, but with just a new coat of paint that says MAGA. This is not what America needs. America needs just and benevolent leaders who are here to fight for us and us alone. I'm reminded of a quote from Tolkien where Gandalf is describing the fall of the once great kingdom of Gondor. Quote, "Kings built tombs more splendid than the houses of the living, and counted the names of their descent dearer than the names of their sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls musing on heraldry, or in high cold towers asking questions of the stars. And so the kingdom of Gondor sank into ruin, the line of kings failed, the white tree withered, and the rule of Gondor was given over to lesser men." The last hope of America, the true America, the land our forefathers built, stands on the edge of a knife. The American people are crying out for help, for the king to return, and for this nation to be glorious once again. And this, above all else, is why Donald Trump won and why people love him. There is no support for the Republican Party, a group of geriatric octogenarians focused on war profiteering abroad and selling out their heritage American base to foreign labor. There is support for only one man, who happens to use that label. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson. These men could be the kings we need, in imitation of the great Americans of old like Morgan, Ford, and Carnegie. The men who built America. Men who are wealthy beyond measure but understand their roles as leaders and their duty to the people they've been trusted to rule over. Nobody actually believes that Donald Trump is a working class man, but that he showed up to work at a McDonald's for a day, attends college football games, and stood up and shouted "fight" after being shot in the head shows us that he has some understanding of the role he's been placed in for so many people. And even with all the problems I've just described, and despite all of the backstabbers, liars, and rigged games, we have everything we need to make it right. All we need are Americans, genuine heritage Americans, who put a man on the moon and carved a nation out of the wilderness with nothing but just themselves. Nobody else could have done that, not millions of Chinese, Mexican, or Indian workers, no matter how many certifications claim that they are elite human capital. All we need is for our leaders to return, to remove the parasites that have for decades weighed us down, taken advantage of our goodwill, and made advancements in their own interest rather than that of their countrymen. The America of old, that shining city upon a hill, can return if we want, if our leaders realize the opportunity they've been given and have the will to see this vision come to fruition. We are the talent. We don't need to look anywhere else. The ball is in our court. America is not an idea. America is not an economic zone. America is not words on a document. America is not the GDP. America is a people. America is a home. America is a history. America is ours, and ours alone. Go follow Red Hawk. Go subscribe to the Old Glory Club on Substack. Subscribe to him on YouTube. Don't miss their Pony Express Radio. I think it's every Thursday night. I have more thoughts on this, but I'm running out of time here. So I'm going to bid you guys adieu. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. And a reminder for those who came in late, the Friday episode was taken down from YouTube because of glorification of violent conduct and or violent content. And I appealed it, and the appeal was immediately denied. So that video will not be returning to YouTube, but you can find it on Twitter. Follow me at RealKingPilled, and I've got the X version of it pinned to my profile right now. You can also go to Substack. I'll get this uploaded. Probably not now because we got to get headed out to church here, but I'll get it uploaded this evening when I get back. And yeah, I think that's all I got for you guys. So go join the Kingpill Discord at kingpill.com. And I will see you guys tomorrow. For now, I present to you Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania